good morning, good afternoon, wherever everybody is. You're watching another episode of the HBAR Foundry Town Halls. For this one, I'm your host. It's Brandon D. I'm the Director of Communications at HGraph, a mirror node service provider. And I'm excited for this one today because we're going to be talking about the future of music on Hedera, a little bit of background of what it's about, and also HIP-920, which people are talking about in the ecosystem. And so I kind of want to chat with some of the people that worked on that HIP. And really quick, the HBAR Foundry, it's so awesome that they're hosting this conversation and gave me the opportunity to kind of highlight this work in the ecosystem. And that's really what the HBAR Foundry is about. I mean, it's a group that meets twice every week, organized discussion, but then also like just the water cooler of the ecosystem. You recharge the battery, you get inspired, and there's people from every corner of the ecosystem, whether it's small projects or major organizations. So with that, I want to get into it with some quick intros, and then we're going to talk about a couple topics. First, we're going to talk about kind of like what's going on in the music industry. What are those barriers, and kind of what is the experience right now in the music industry? We've got some panelists that have some good experience in that. Then we're going to talk about the musicians becoming early adopters of Web3, specifically Hedera. And then we're going to talk and dive into HIP-920 and really look forward and seeing kind of how this is going to impact NFTs and music in Web3. So with that, I want to give a quick intro to Patches and Tyler. Tyler is from HashPack. I mean, no introduction needed there. And Patches is from TurtleMoon. No introduction needed there. But I want to give you guys a quick minute to speak a little bit about what you guys are working on, and kind of what you're excited about with music in Hedera before we dive into the discussion here. So Patches, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. This is a really cool platform. Definitely higher production value than Spaces. I enjoy it. Yeah, I've been working on music actually in tandem with you for a very long time on Hedera. We started the NFT metadata working group. And from there, we got a lot of people together on Hedera to start to create a metadata standard that we think would be able to encapsulate the needs of the record industry and people that want to have a new distribution mechanism that maybe removes the need of a record label, but can translate all of the data that you need to have a functional real release in the market. So I'm really excited. You and I have both released singles on this premature standard. So it wasn't finished yet. We were, kind of iteration cycles of it. And I'm planning on minting more music. And there's a couple more musicians that are coming out that I can see on Hashnals or minting music there. So excited to see how the tokenization methods of Hedera paired with a really well thought out through, I think, 8 months we spent on 920. Bunch of different people, including a producer in LA, to understand what is needed in the format, and I'm really proud of what we got, and I think it will accommodate almost entirely anything that a major artist would need to tokenize their assets.
That's incredible. And Tyler from HashPack, maybe you have a really interesting perspective on all this because being a wallet provider in the ecosystem and now all this music stuff is here. Really interested to kind of hear, maybe what you guys are working on, what's new, and then your quick thoughts on kind of music in Hedera and what you're most excited about.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon. I'm not a musician myself, but I'm definitely very familiar with metadata. So seeing this standard kind of develop over the past year or so has been really nice to see. I think this will kind of be like the tip of the spear when it comes to more format specific metadata. And it's something we really need in the ecosystem. HIP 412 is a great kind of starting point, but adding things on top of it will really add a lot of kind of specific, domain specific features to this stuff. And yeah, talking about the Foundry, shout out to them for hosting this. I've been a part of that for a while now, and it's really grown. So if you're a creator, check out the Foundry. But yeah, happy to get into this stuff in a bit.
Love it. That's awesome. So, yeah. So we're going to talk about the first topic here. I think Vcente is just trying to find his AirPods. So basically, what I want to talk about is, you know, the music industry. Like we talk about music on Hedera, all these different types of things, but the music industry itself, like why are, you know, musicians wanting to check out Web3? What problems exist in the music industry? How does it work? I think a lot of people in Hedera and Web3 maybe don't understand some of that behind the scenes stuff. And as an artist, Patches, I think you have a great perspective because specifically being like an indie artist, as you know, many creators in Web3 are indie creators. Maybe you could speak to kind of the challenges of being an artist in, you know, the traditional music industry, and then maybe kind of what drew you to Web3, you know, and then some of those barriers you come up to trying to get into Web3. You know, I'm really curious to hear kind of your thoughts on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So before I was in any development of Web3, I was in a, you know, so like local famous band, I guess you'd call it, and I, you know, did some tours and stuff. And you'd go on tour for like 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and you come back and you'd be really happy if you had $100. Like the ability to both create and resonate with people that love your creation and make money is extremely difficult, especially with the proliferation of, okay, I can spend $10 and get the discography of the planet streamed directly to me anywhere. It's a really hard dynamic to figure out a way to monetize and survive on. What really enticed me about Web3 is the ability for an artist to directly sell. He finally found his AirPods and his mask. To directly sell to the people who want to listen to your creation. And it's not just like, hey, I can sell you something. It's about removing the middleman who was your marketer, who determined what you look like, how you sound, what you do, where you go. And it puts the power in the artist's hands where they can directly communicate with the fans that care about them. They can exchange value directly. They can have a way more intimate communication mechanism. And you can gamify and create this experience that is uninhibited by a middleman taking most of the profit. And especially for indie artists, this unlocks a new monetization method where if you have 100 fans, which I know Vicente's going to talk and I'm stealing his line, all you need is 100 to 1,000 fans that are intimately, you know, care about your art, and you can maintain that relationship and be a successful musician who doesn't have to get a side job to then supplement your creative output. And I think that that's the goal, is to empower artists to focus on their creation by being enabled by people who love their creation and not just losing 90% of that value in the interim because that's the person who's connecting you through record deals and other things. So that, yeah.
I have my mute button on. Such a professional production here. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that, you know, it's in the music industry, it's so important to delineate between, like, you know, those indie artists and the mainstream artists, because it's two completely different experiences. And you're right. It's like this technology really is there for the indie artist to grab and take a hold of. And similar to like Vcente, it is a absolute pleasure to have you here, a legend in the ecosystem. And same question to you that I asked Patches, and you have a bit of a different perspective because you have experience in kind of that upper tier of the music industry. And you know, my question to Patches was like, what is it like in the music industry? What problems exist? What makes Web3 and crypto and Hedera interesting for an artist such as yourself? I mean, you've been building for years at this point. So I'm really curious to get kind of your perspectives for people that maybe don't really understand what the music industry is all about and why Web3 can help out.
Good morning, guys. It's 7 a.m. in LA, so it was a little crazy. And then we had the Lakers break my heart last night, so you know it's been a lot. But we're here. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. So the music industry, it's for most people that don't know, it's a pretty simple situation, right? So it operates in the way of artist creates music, labels handle the music production and the marketing, then that gets sent to streaming platforms who deliver the music to consumers, and then publishers manage the rights of said music, and then performing rights organizations known as pros collect those royalties, right? So it's like this huge ecosystem. And then the revenue comes from like downloads and streaming and live performances and then licensing. So it's a really dynamic ecosystem that's really an antiquated infrastructure. It relies on emails and letters and faxes. And anytime you want to get anything done, you have to like fall back into this like world of like emailing 5 people, and then those 5 people control 3% of the song, and then 3% of that song is based on 5 songwriters and producers. So it's just this web of just like complexity that is just a pain in the butt to like get anything done in. So naturally, like when Web3 started coming around and all that, I'm like, this is the easiest way to like streamline everything, right? And I think that's really like the most important thing when it comes to everything that we're doing as, you know, a working group, and the music metadata centers that we're like, you know, we're working on and all this stuff. To me, like, it's making everything so much more easier in this world that shouldn't be so like antiquated. It's 2024, and I'm still dealing with emails and faxes every day. It's insane.
That's crazy. And I think this right here, what you know, you, Vceezy, and Patches kind of spoke to, is, you know, these are the real. This is what the music industry kind of is about, and what's happening in the music industry and has been happening for so long for both mainstream artists and indie artists, and the pain points and problems are clear. And I mean, musicians have been talking about it forever, but Web3 does feel like a real answer for everybody. And I think that independent artists just have like such a advantage here to become early adopters. And before we dive into HIP-920, I just wanted to touch on like, so the next phase of this, like we talk about the problems, but who are the early adopters in the music industry right now solving those problems, trying out Web3, and also, you know, specifically Hedera, like Patches, I know that you're, you know, doing music stuff. I'm doing music stuff. Vcente, you're doing music stuff on Hedera, and then Tyler at HashPack, like the functionality in the wallet to facilitate that as these standards grow out. Yeah, I want to touch on those things, and maybe Patches, I'll go back to you real quick, and I'll kind of ask, you know, your journey into Web3 and into Hedera through music specifically. Maybe quickly just talk us through the process of like putting some of the first music on Hedera, you know, and what that kind of was like, and what it is to be an early adopter for Web3 music, and maybe like what you're seeing on other networks as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if the Sphinx, which is the single that's on, you know, TurtleMoon.io/music, you can still, you know, purchase one for 50 HBAR. It was an attempt to utilize our standard in the most infinite state, I think. And when HIP-412 came out, which you know, worked with Tyler May and tons of people in the ecosystem to build out, the files array was just the golden egg of Hedera metadata. It provides so much value where you can nest multiple files into one piece of ownership. And that unlocks a lot of things that is more difficult on Ethereum and other networks that don't have that files array. As an example, if you wanted to download a 5-song EP, you would have to have 5 NFTs. And then if you wanted to listen to those 5 songs, you would have to pull up each song. It just makes it a lot more complicated. One, in HIP-412, you know, I had the single, and so first it was just the image. So when you look at your NFT in your wallet, or you know, HashPack, you know, that's wallet, you see the album title or the album cover, and then you hit next, and then you get the music, and then you hit next, and you get the lyric sheet, and you hit next, and you can see the behind the scenes. And so you get this ability as a musician to curate an experience that you would like that is more equivalent to a vinyl or a CD that you would sell at a show, but it's a digital experience and it shows and dictates ownership. And then for the user, it's easier to listen to an album. I don't know if this exists yet, but it would be awesome at HashPack if you just hit play and it played all of the files array that are music files. And I know we're in HIP-920, we talked about categorization and trying to make it easy to understand what it is and isn't a music file. So there's a lot of things in there, but it just simplifies the dictation of ownership. And it was really cool to use some of my art in my, I made the album art, I made the lyrics, I made everything on that single. I just kind of did from soup to nuts. And it was really cool to release that and see people and show, like they would post like, hey, I'm like listening to your song, and it's a picture of HashPack. It's a picture of a wallet listening to a NFT. So I think it was a good proof of concept. And I guess the last most important piece, as a musician who is indie and doesn't have like a built-in giant audience, when you release a single, the expectation is that's probably for free. When I did this, I made 1,000 USDC from it. So I converted over to USDC, and that's going to go towards mixing and mastering my EP. And so as an indie musician with not a huge following, I can release my music and creativity through launching an NFT and gain enough money back to then invest in my creation again. And so again, it's this much closer, intimate cycle of creator and person who likes creation, enabling me to create more and give them more value. And it's just a closer relationship between the two.
I love that. That's a great point. It's like, all an artist and a fan wants to do is just exchange value between each other. And when you like remove all the different bits in between that and just create that connection, it's like amazing things can happen. Artists can make like way better products. And so I think one thing that isn't touched on a ton, but I think is really important is, the consumption element of things. Like when we think about music, it's like, well, how do you listen to the music? You've got like, let's say a vinyl player. You've got, back in the day, you got Winamp, or now you have like, Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. So you have these things you listen to it in, and you consume art in different applications. And I look at HashPack and I go, well, that's, in the Web3 world, a wallet is really how you interface with a lot of these different types of things. And then there's going to be all sorts of different dApps, but really, the consumption, the innovation there starts with the wallet, where everyone's kind of looking at things. And Tyler, my question for you, as kind of that surface where everything kind of meets and people actually use these products they own. When we talk about music, how do you see music NFTs or these types of collectibles changing the way in which people use something like a wallet, not just for finance related things or swapping or minting NFTs, but actually, or just looking at a JPEG, but actually like listening to something or doing something in that kind of way? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess I kind of see it going into more of like a digital asset management type of direction. Like it's more than just buying and selling tokens, right? It's like I own this digital asset, and so let me use it places. One of the big things that this metadata standard is going to do is enable us to kind of like know what is music and what isn't. So like right now, there's like you could have an NFT with a MP3 file in it, but it might not be like music, right? So it's hard to kind of denote like what is music in your library, and this is going to allow us to do a lot of things when we know what is music. So maybe, yeah, like Patch has said, you can hit like play and it'll play all your music or something, or like you could make a folder with a bunch of songs that turns into like a playlist. So the capabilities that this is going to enable is going to be pretty huge. And I see that kind of trickling down to other asset types, right? Like tickets. Tickets needs a metadata standard. Like game assets need a standard. All of these kind of specific domains need standards in order to enable kind of the advanced, like HIP 412 is kind of like the base. That's the most basic you can get, and then this enhances it for that specific domain, and that just enables like app creators to do a whole lot more when they know what the file is intended to be. Yeah.
No, that you hit on something really important again that I think is like a big piece of all this is we talk about music metadata and all these different types of things, but the reality is like literally the music industry is like a set of metadata standards. Like it's just always been that way. It's why you can drag an MP3 that you download on Pirate Bay into, you know, whatever, and then your song info appears or everything's kind of organized. And it's like, how does that happen? It's like, because these metadata standards have existed for so long. So HIP-920 isn't really so much about like building something completely new. It's really about bringing something the music industry needs and that already exists into Web3. And it's so great because it's just a set of standards that already it feels kind of plug and play. All it matters is us getting on the same page about stuff and educating each other. But
Yeah, Brandon, can I just say something real quick about
jump in.
Yeah, no, I think everything that's being said is just really highlights how the music industry has historically embraced all technological advances, literally from the beginning of the last century, from adopting radio broadcasting, and then musicians making their music for radio, and then making their music for vinyl. And all along the history of music, we've adapted, and not only adapted, but we've really been ahead of the curve. And that really was highlighted with the digital streaming platforms early on. Music NFTs to me is just the next iteration, the next frontier in this trend of the music industry just being early adopters of everything. And this is like the first time it really offers artists unique opportunities, obviously to like tokenize their music, but create new revenue streams. And then more importantly, like which we lean into in Vceezy, is engage directly with fans, right? So we're always ready to like explore and leverage all these new tools that, people like Tyler and Patches and everyone is like actively trying to build, so we can enhance our craft as musicians, but obviously keep evolving in this music industry landscape. And then I think furthermore, I think it was really like accelerated with the pandemic, right? And it became like this perfect storm of us all just realizing how fragile the music industry was and having to find new revenue streams. So I just really do think like music NFTs and Web3 music and everything is just the most obvious play into like the next iteration of the music industry.
Love that. And I think you raised a good point. Like, years ago, people were like, people aren't going to pay a monthly fee for access to music. That's nuts. That's insane. And the adoption of new technology is often spearheaded by artists. That's just reality. So on music streaming, things are already starting to move beyond, the crazy concept of paying a monthly fee and realizing maybe that was a bit of a crazy concept. Maybe we actually need to go further. And I'm so happy to have Andrew here from TuneFM, because when we talk about music streaming, that's the whole other component. We've been talking about collectibles, we've been talking about products, we've been talking about experiences in Web3, but then we extend to like disrupting an industry, which is music streaming, through Web3. And so Andrew, so good to have you here, and maybe a quick intro about yourself, what you're doing at TuneFM, and then maybe speaking to how does music industry work right now, and how do you envision it working in the future? And then we'll move on to a talk about HIP-920.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I'm Andrew with TuneFM. We're a Web3 decentralized music streaming platform and digital asset marketplace, so a music NFT marketplace. And essentially, we're the next generation of music streaming. Whereas we were talking about earlier, music has really gone through many transformations, and it's always defined by the technology that's the underlying distribution mechanism and payments technology for the music. So whether it's terrestrial radio into LP records, CDs, then digital downloads, and then streaming. And now we have new payments technology that will allow us to go beyond a subscription where you can do micro payments for music streaming. So our motto is when the music gets played, the artist gets paid. And so uh, artists can actually get paid for every single second that their music is streamed anywhere in the world. And consumers and music fans can pay for music as they go, literally as they're listening to it in, micro payments and pennies at a time, that are automatically deducted. It's sort of like a crypto jukebox where you have credits that like that you play music and it consumes the credits. And so that's a new sort of business model for the music industry that's only possible with tokens, only possible actually with Hedera, because you can't do this type of thing on Ethereum or Bitcoin or elsewhere. It's not just a crypto thing, it's a Hedera innovation that allows for this business model to happen. So it's sort of a more of a pay as you go a la carte situation instead of an all you can eat buffet, which is what you get with Spotify. And so we believe that it's more closely aligned with what people actually want, which is they only want to pay for what they're listening to and what they're actually using. And artists can get paid 100 times more than Spotify with this model. And so it's actually cheaper to the consumer overall. Even if you listen to Spotify the same amount of music, because you can actually get paid to discover music now. This is sort of a two-way street now where as an artist, you can promote your music to first-time listeners, and as a fan, you can discover new music. And if you're willing to go outside, what you're used to listening to, it's worth more to the artist to be sort of the first-time listener, and you can get paid play to earn style for listening to promoted music, and that can offset your costs. You could actually earn money for listening to music. So a lot of cool opportunities are now possible with Hedera tokens, and also with digital assets. Artists could really monetize their super fans. So we've built a super robust music NFT marketplace, and it's true music NFTs, not just like music related or music themed NFTs, which is a lot of what you see out there. These music NFTs are the actual song, the actual album. We have multi-file, multimedia, multi-tiered NFTs leveraging Hedera technology. And what's so important about this music metadata standard is that we've totally adopted the standard. We've already implemented it in TuneFM. We can actually have amazing rich metadata, everything from the BPM to the key to the different publishing and rights management, um, and sort of just know that the way that we're organizing the metadata, leveraging everything that's possible with Hedera, the multi-file, multimedia sort of aspect, is in a standard way that everyone's going to adopt across the board. So our NFTs that are minted on our platform by artists are really portable across all different layers of Hedera applications and everything. So it's really great. So that's why we felt that we really wanted to have a integral part in the creation of this metadata standard and be the first to adopt it. And so we've completely built that into our platform, and it's live today. And with any song, you can click the metadata button and enter the metadata. And when you mint an NFT, you can enter the metadata and add all these different pieces of information to the song that is super rich metadata profile. So very exciting, and also like we were saying earlier, metadata has always been a deep part of the way the digital music universe operates. And so, there are metadata standards for the way that catalogs are organized, and the way that different digital music services consume music. And so we've very largely leveraged that and used a lot of the same formats for certain things, whether it's the way root genres and subgenres are organized and stuff like that, and different UPC codes and stuff like that. So it's really an evolution of the music metadata standard that is already adopted globally now for tokens, and we've adopted that for our Web3 platform. So really excited to be part of this whole effort and discussion, and putting this together and adopting it.
Right
Appreciate it.
on. Hell yeah. And I think Andrew, you really hit on a specific point there is when we talk about, we're going to switch to HIP-920 now. Cause I think people are really interested in it. And, it is a set of metadata standards for NFTs on Hedera, all different types of NFTs, getting us all speaking the same language. But as Andrew said, this isn't just something hypothetical. These standards are currently being utilized by platforms and products across Hedera. Like TurtleMoon has produced products that support HIP-920, TuneFM, and artists are also putting out music currently on Hedera that utilize this standard, like myself. So essentially, we're talking about a working standard that's out there live right now, and the HIP, where it's at, is the Hashgraph NFT working group has finished work on this iteration of the HIP and basically said to the community, here's what we think is going to be a great jumping off point for the future of music on Hedera. And the HIP has been kind of in review for a while. There's some little updates and tweaks to add, but the goal is to get it to that final review stage and let the community have that spot check on it. And then it will be an official Hedera HIP and ready for anyone to dive in and start building. And so on HIP-920, just rewinding a little bit, Patches, I wanted to go to you and talk a little bit about, the decision making involved with, reaching out to people like myself and saying, hey, we need to really get on music metadata standards for Hedera. What was the call to action for you? And also kind of like maybe talking a little bit about, how this group got the initiative off the ground a little bit and what got us kind of to where we're at now.
Yeah. My memory's not great, so I'm going to try to...
I can help you out if needed.
Yeah. HIP 412 was a really, I think, a community bonding effort because it was everyone from every facet that was on Hedera at that time, which was really like, we just went through our main wallet kind of not existing anymore, and everyone was trying to figure out how do you do anything. And then HashPack came in as the first replacement wallet. That's not a good way to say it. The new wallet that came after that. And there was scattered metadata just across all of these markets and everything. And like, it was just difficult to display stuff because you didn't know what you were expecting. And it was a mess. But through that trial by fire, the entire community came together and built arguably the best metadata standard on any network. I really can't look at any other network that has a more verbose and versatile metadata standard that lends itself to different facets and categories of digital assets. When I wanted to create NFTs of my music, because I'm a musician, I got one of the main things I love about NFTs is that direct from creator to person who likes creation connection. I started to realize okay, well, these are the things that I kind of want there, but if this isn't standardable to see or play, or there's no platforms that will show this, and if I just build it for TurtleMoon, then it's okay, well, it's great. The second it gets off TurtleMoon, it doesn't work. So I think we already had the DAO working group, Brandon. And,
yes, I believe so, yeah.
And so I wasn't new to creating working groups in the space. And I definitely am passionate about music and know that NFTs are going to continually go through iterations. So I think I reached out to you first, and we started creating a coalition of people that we really thought would care about, setting standards on NFT metadata. And then I think our first task was music. We're like, how do we get music to work?
Yeah.
And from there, we pulled in, Andrew came in, Vcente, obvious choice, HashPack. I mean, there's a couple other people in the working group, and my memory sucks. So
yeah, we totally opened it up, and we were kind of like, if you're building music things, we need to figure out standards, and people just threw their hat in, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I think Siki was a part of some of the conversations with metadata. Yep. It's been 9 months, so people have come in and out, and It's not always consistent because just running a startup takes all of your time sometimes. But it was another collaborative effort of people who are passionate about music, trying to find and test and iterate on what is the data that we need here. And to Andrew's point, we looked at what is industry adopted, what needs to come over, we had perspectives of me, who's a 100% indie artist. We had perspectives of Vcente, who's an LA producer. We had perspectives of Andrew, who is running a platform in Siki. We have a perspective of a HashPack who's trying to display it to users. So we tried to get a coalition of people who would have the touch points of the asset all throughout its life cycle to directly understand and accommodate those things. And at this point, HIP-920, I think, is just like 98%, 99% done. There's just a couple more comments, but I really am excited for after that gets passed and it's a solidified HIP, what can happen from there and what promotion we can put behind it and create tooling that's very simple to create NFTs for music and just explore. I mean, we're on the cutting edge of technology and the cutting edge of music creation and distribution. And so exploring it, no one has the answer. We all have hypotheses, but this is going to be a way that our hypothesis can at least talk to each other and we can display them and we can understand how to interact with them. And the most important part, the user has a good experience with the art. And I think that's what we're all trying to accommodate here. And that's it's been really awesome working with the group and where we've gotten to.
I think that's awesome. And I wanted to kind of hit on something here, and I'm going to go to Vcente next, but a key aspect here that, you know, I really want the community to understand is like this kind of Hedera improvement proposal HIP stuff. It is a bit technical. If you want to, you know, make changes to this HIP or participate in those discussions, you do have to be on GitHub. You have to leave comments on a pull request, and it's this whole thing. So I encourage people to check it out. It's not actually that hard. And, you know, having your opinions and thoughts on stuff like this is really important. But my question for, you know, Vcente being a part of this group through this whole process and this being a pretty technical endeavor as an artist and helping shape this from the perspective of an artist, maybe not so much from a technical perspective, maybe what were some really important things that you brought to the table with this HIP to kind of help shape that? I think that there were so many important insights that you had that really made these considerations for the group really, really clear. So really curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, my first and most paramount is always royalty distribution, just because I know what we deal with on a daily basis. But yeah, I think for any musicians that maybe stumble on this conversation and are like, what's metadata, what's HIPs, what's all this stuff, is like, you'd be surprised how many musicians just don't really know what any of this stuff is. They'll upload a song and just put the title and that's it, and then YOLO, we'll see, and then they go viral and then they blow up and then they have this music that has no like interoperability with anything else, right? So yeah, for anyone listening, it's authenticity, ownership verification, right? So it ensures that your NFT contains accurate information about you as a creator, the ownership rights, and, you know, for us, you know, provenance of the content, you know, and it helps verify the authenticity of this stuff, and that stuff matters. And then again, the interoperability of, like, you know, being able to be on different platforms and marketplaces. Like, it's really important to like future proof your music, right? This is what we want to do here. And then obviously the royalty distribution, all the royalty splits, you know, it's all there, it's facilitated, automated. Everything's going to be easy for all the rights holders and the creators to ensure that we all have fair compensation and transparent revenue sharing. To me, that's like super important. And then again, yeah, like, you know, there's licensing and rights management, all this stuff that I deal with on a daily basis that's just stupid. But all this is just there for us to like just have it verified, have it just right in front of your face. If anyone wants to license your music or your NFT down the line, they know who to contact, they know how much each person owns. It's a very simple process that, again, I mentioned earlier in the conversation, that relies on faxes and emails till this day. Like, I'm signed to the biggest music publisher in the world, and I'm on an email thread that's like 2 months old of trying to like track down who owns the last 3% of this song, and it ended up that they're dead. And now like they're trying to like find their estate, and it's just a big hassle. And that is the music industry, and that's what we're trying to change here with what we're building here. So again, verifying authenticity, that interoperability, having your stuff future proof, like that's been my goal of contributing to this group.
Right on. Love it. And for people listening to and watching, you know, leave a comment wherever you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or X or whatever. We can throw your comments up on screen. Maybe you got a question or something, but I wanted to go now to Tyler HashPack, talking about this, the Hashgraph NFT working group, the process of working on this HIP. I mean, Patches, highlighted that really well, of like having all sorts of different people in the ecosystem with all different perspectives come together on this. And, again, being a wallet, being the touch point where a lot of this stuff is consumed, and working on these music metadata standards. I'm curious to know like what your experience was like, what kind of considerations you were bringing to the table, what were your priorities in the creation of this HIP?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of approached this more from a tech point of view versus like a music point of view. Just because I'm not a music guy, so I deferred to kind of the pros here. But yeah, there were kind of a lot of considerations here, and like a lot of discussion went into how to structure this stuff. For those kind of unaware, I guess, like the metadata here it's basically like a list of information about every aspect of kind of an asset. In this case, music. There's things like lyrics, like copyright. All this stuff is in here, and a really important part for me was to kind of make this backwards compatible with the existing marketplaces, wallets, what have you. So it is literally an extension of the existing 412 metadata. So if your app doesn't support this music metadata, it'll still show the songs, the creator, all that stuff will still show up. And that's really important, because the last thing you want is this NFT to be broken everywhere. There's a lot. I looked at it more from like a usability point of view. Like there's stuff in here like the timestamp lyrics. Like that's super exciting to me as a app developer, like being able to display that stuff. And yeah, working with kind of everyone in the group was really good. It was a long process, but we made it. We made it through. And yeah, I'm super happy with this. I don't know if it's worth someone maybe like attaching a link to this in here somewhere, but I think being able to look at it really kind of shows what amount of effort went into kind of making this.
Yeah, maybe I can pull up my screen here in a minute and share it. But no, you make great points, and I think that that's super important. Again, like what this HIP is about for music metadata standards is like Andrew was talking about, Patches was talking about, Tyler and Vcente is like taking things that already exist and just getting people on the same page. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's backwards compatible. It's just moving things forward. And yeah, I'll pull up some of the HIP on the screen maybe, but in the meantime, I wanted to maybe throw it back to Patches really quick, just to chat on the Hashgraph NFT working group. The name implies, the whole NFT ecosystem. But as we've talked about for the last year, almost, it's like the group has really been focused on this one task. And it's really important because, having that focus allows you to get things done. But now that something's been accomplished, really the group, the Hashgraph NFT working group, wants to expand much more broadly and encompass many more areas of the NFT ecosystem, bringing many more people to the table, and starting to work on bigger things together, maybe multiple things at the same time. So maybe Patches, really quick, could you speak to how you envision the next year of the Hashgraph NFT working group, and maybe some of the things that we could start working on together as an ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a good call out. We're not shutting down the working group now. It's not like, oh, we made 920, that was it, guys. It's just music. It was really just the music working group. It was a really good exercise. Like if you asked me 9 months ago, you're like, hey, you're going to be working on music for 9 months in this working group, I'd be like, nah, there's no way. But it is like the amount of nuanced conversations about nuanced topics inside of the metadata was high. And I think that, again, that trial by fire, what came out is going to be forward thinking and backwards compatible and achieves all of the things we really wanted to do from all these perspectives. So going forward, I think there's a lot of different verticals and categories that are benefited when their digital assets are tokenized on Hedera or a hash graph. And I think, easy ones to call out are gaming. How should players interact with digital assets that have stats that update with interaction inside of a game? What should that format be to easily display inside wallets when the stats are done? So we have the properties, but should there be more from it? And I think the main part is, this shouldn't be a dictation. So I have ideas of things that we should continually iterate on in metadata. But as we're hitting this, kind of giant milestone of passing HIP-920, I think the encouragement is, if you're in the ecosystem and you're building anything that involves metadata in an NFT, please come to the working group. We're not, it's highly approachable. There's no real structure. Brandon's the only person who really herds the cats because we have a doc and we know what we're doing in the agenda. But it's really open. Just come to one meeting and talk about what you're passionate about in Hedera, what you're passionate about tokenizing, questions you have about metadata. It's really meant to be and is a community-ran organization that is just trying to push forward the tokenization on Hedera by normalizing how we create the new asset class of the future.
Love that. And I think in the broader context too, and where the HBAR Foundry comes into this, and we're going to start wrapping things up soon. I'll share a little bit of HIP-920. I'll show the actual HIP on the screen for people, and we'll talk a little bit about stuff. But really quick, what you touched on, Patch, is the group growing, expanding, and where the HBAR Foundry comes into this. There's so many great community organized groups, and so many different people involved in those groups do end up meeting at the ecosystem, water cooler at the HBAR Foundry, and the information sharing, that bandwidth is just incredible. So the HBAR Foundry really provides this meeting place for all these different satellite initiatives and groups. Representatives just happen to bump into each other on these calls, and the sharing and information and camaraderie is just amazing. But what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and I want to. Here we go. Maybe I have my permissions. Hopefully I have my permissions properly. Perfect. So real quick, everybody watching, as you know, we were saying, this is the actual HIP. People familiar with HIPs, this will look familiar. But this is the draft HIP. Here's some information about it. This is the general format of a HIP, table of contents. And really what, Tyler was talking about is, here's all the reasoning, here's all the breakdowns, but then here's some tech stuff, right? Like here's the actual breakdown of the schema for the metadata. That's another word that I hope a bunch of people start learning. Here's, some samples of all this stuff. And I know this looks weird to a lot of people, like this is some weird code or something, but this is kind of art. Like this is the NFT. If you can get really good at just like, practicing guitar or learning guitar or, learning some kind of new skill as a musician, if you can learn how to write this kind of metadata, that is a very valuable skill in this digital age for music. This is truly taking ownership of your art and really making it yours. So it might look weird now, but dive in and you'll find out it's not super weird and it's actually pretty normal. This stuff is pretty normal. But this is a look at the HIP. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts just as we're looking at the HIP right now. Maybe we'll go around a little bit here, but final thoughts on HIP-920, what's next, music on Hedera, everything we talked about, just reflecting on everything we talked about today. I'll maybe go around and get everyone's thoughts, but I'll start maybe with Andrew. With our discussion today, everything we talked about, looking towards the future, how are you feeling about Web3 music, all these things on Hedera,
Yeah, well, I just wanted to also thank you for putting this together. I think it's important to have community leaders who organize these types of working groups, and it's very a community-driven effort. It's not a siloed effort, and we're able to bring in all the different perspectives. And I was able to, bring my perspective, and just the fact that we've, built a music streaming platform with a lot of different aspects of music that streaming that we wanted to include, and whether it's streaming royalties or unlockables are all different types of things that we've already built into our metadata that we needed to have part of the sort of standard, and then all these other things that were brought in that we've added to our standard, which has enhanced our product. So it's really been a great process to go through this, and we got into the weeds on a lot of different stuff, and we all learned a lot about different aspects of music metadata. So it was really a cool process, and I'm excited because this is just the beginning, and we're going to see a massive sort of growth from here in artists creating music NFTs on Hedera, and a lot of celebrity drops that are coming up, especially on our platform. And so this music metadata standard is actually going to become, I think, the world standard for music metadata as music NFTs and Web3 streaming starts to dominate the space. And so it's extremely important to have the first version of this really be robust and get it right, or at least take our best shot at it. Of course, it can always evolve from here. But I was just, really excited for what's to come with artists all around the world, large and small, who are going to be using this, whether they even know it or not. It's just going to be baked into the digital footprint and landscape of their music. So I really appreciate being part of this process.
Yeah, appreciate you, Andrew. And real quick shout out to Michael watching, leaving a comment. Best way to get a hold of the working group, we're just on X. Just fire over a DM if anyone's interested in getting involved. Check it out. We're doing our thing. We're growing. And same question to you, Patches. Just kind of like reflecting on everything we talked about today. Just going around the horn here. Interested to get your thoughts.
Yeah, a lot of work's been done. HIP is open. If you have any comments or suggestions or just want to see it, Brandon just showed it on the screen. You can go to the HIP's site for Hedera. You could probably just type in HIP-920 Hedera on Google, and it'll get you a link there. I wanted to say, the metadata standard doesn't dictate where it lives. So if you were to create a ordinal of music, you could use this standard. You can make a hash null of music. It could be on IPFS. It could be on Arweave. So it is really versatile beyond that. And if you wanted to see kind of the lyrics being pulled off of an NFT and shown to a user, we tried to demonstrate the player. I'm not sure. I think it's on TuneFM as well. But we tried to show the user all of this metadata stuff. So if you go to turtlemoon.io/music, you can look at Brandon's single, you can look at my single. When you hit the player on my single, the lyrics from the NFT will show. So it'll give you a little bit more of a visual, contextual understanding that the lyrics that are showing to you are a standard. And that standard can be used for any player to easily integrate this metadata and show a really good experience to the user that's consistent. And so, again, it's just a tangible touch point for someone who might not be technical to see, okay, this is possible because of 920, and everyone who integrates 920 will be able to have a really nice experience for me, based on the standard. So it's exciting.
Love that. And same question to you, Vcente. Our talk today, everything we were chatting about, what are your takeaways? What are your thoughts? What do you think about the future of music on Hedera?
Yeah, we're just at the infancy. I'm so bullish on everything that we're building here. We have the Avengers of people here that can make anything happen. And I'm most excited about, everyone obviously knows I've been talking about dynamic NFTs, but I really do believe that can revolutionize the music industry. I think it could enable artists to create interactive experiences for their fans, such as evolving remixes, evolving album artwork. You could tackle concert tickets. You can unlock special features. Dynamic NFTs to me are going to provide a whole new revenue stream by introducing this idea. Like you can, collaborate after the fact, and it's an exciting thing. This is what we're focused on here at Vceezy. Is our next initiative is Lost Tapes, which will feature dynamic music NFTs, allowing our holders to collect, mix, and match sounds to create music. And over time, they can further personalize, these NFTs and make them their own. So to me, that's only possible here on Hedera. And this is why, you know, I've been building here, VceezyNFT, since October of 2021, coming up on 3 years. So excited to have met everyone that I've met, become friends with, and I'm just excited to just really, really revolutionize the music industry.
Right on. And Tyler, HashPack, same question for you. You know, just reflecting on our chat today, thinking about the future of music on Hedera. I'm interested to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that all the music guys are happy with this metadata, but I think it's more about the process for me. Like, it's really speaks volumes that we kind of had the maturity level and organization to kind of take this from ideation all the way to like already being implemented. It's yeah, that's super bullish for the ecosystem that we have that, and you know, it was a learning experience, I'm sure, for a lot of us. But yeah, I guess I'll finish off with maybe a bit of a call out to you know, if you're a creator or a builder with like certain domain knowledge, like maybe film, photography industries, gaming, like something like this is super valuable to furthering that standardization of stuff on the ecosystem. So maybe think about reaching out and starting a metadata standard for your domain. So yeah,
I think that's awesome. I love that. That's what this is really about. It's about realizing that we don't need permission to build the future tools that we need to succeed. That's the promise of Web3, and that's what's happening. We did not get approval for any of this. We just built it and people are using it. And that's what this is all about. So really appreciate you guys being there for throughout the whole process. And just wanted to give a quick shout out to, again, as we wrap up here, the HBAR Foundry, just so gracious giving us, you know, this space and this channel to have this conversation about something that I think is like super important for this ecosystem. And as you know, Tyler said, you know, it's not just music. There's other, you know, verticals and media types and all sorts of different things that require this. And there's a bit of a format here. And I think that this group can really help people. And it extends even further to the HBAR Foundry, right? Like I said, I always think of the HBAR Foundry as kind of like the water cooler of this ecosystem. They have a Friday call. There's no gatekeeping. I've got the Zoom link. And you can stop by and you can just meet up and chat with people. And when I say people, again, I mean the folks you see here, also people from the HBAR Foundation, the Hashgraph Association, Hedera, Swirlds. Like, these are people at all sorts of organizations that get together and we just talk about what's happening in the ecosystem, help each other solve problems. And it just really is a cool conversation always.
BlackRock's there.
Yeah, also too. Yeah, but disclaimer. Yeah, but Jesus, Vcente. But the other thing is, like, you know, they also it's not just you know, people getting together and chatting and stuff. What the HBAR Foundry has done over the years is they've taken that community water cooler and they've actually been able to create these structures to drive it into action. And they have Monday meetings as well, where it's just very structured, very disciplined, very focused, very action oriented. And it leads to stuff like this that you're watching right now. That's the results of it, is just independent conversations, information sharing, communication. I think that's really the theme here for me was what this is all about is it's about communication. It's about getting on the same page. It's about spending time with each other and finding that focus and solving a problem and achieving it and moving on to the next thing. And so, like, working with you folks has just been so inspiring. And again, huge shout out to the HBAR Foundry for providing this. And yeah, before we sign off, make sure to check out the Hashgraph NFT working group. Reach out if you're interested. We'd be happy to have you. Quick goodbye, everybody. And then Jesse, kill the feed, man.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.